Yeah. So what was your experience like when you first started climbing?
Oh, when I first started climbing, I was not really in the adaptive climbing world yet, despite being an adaptive climbing athlete. I didn't really know that that was a thing to begin with. I just started going to the local bouldering gym, got into the community, into the sport, really enjoyed the kind of different type of lifestyle that climbing provided from other sports, more individual and less competitive. Although I did end up competing in rock climbing, but when I first got into it, it was really like bouldering, climbing outside, and just being a climber.
Yeah. So I see you boulder a lot. Is that your favorite form of climbing?
I'd say so. It's how I got into it. I'm starting to really enjoy getting out on ropes more, but I still love bouldering. I like climbing out by myself quite a bit, which is a lot easier to do lower to the ground.
Yeah.
And I just like the sort of problem solving of it. A shorter problem that can be solved in like a session or two with hard moves.
So what was your first boulder outside?
My first boulder outside.
Yeah.
It's a good question. I think there was like this little potato V2 on this lakeside track in West Kelowna near where I live. Um, I think it's called Mini Me, and it's maybe a 4 feet tall boulder that's just like a couple of compression moves up a really easy face. But yeah, it was that was the start of it all.
Okay. So have you gone back and climbed it since you've gotten more into climbing?
Yeah. I think I went back this year and pulled on, basically just. I mean, I walk up to the thing and I'm already 2 feet above it. So, but it's not the most classic climb, but it was my first, I guess.
Yeah, but it's memorable. I mean, it's your first, we all remember our first climb, so that's awesome.
For sure.
I gotcha. So, Seamus, besides climbing, what do you have any like other hobbies or interests that like kind of bring you fulfillment on kind of the same level as climbing does?
I don't think anything quite on that level. I do like building things occasionally. Actually, right now I'm working on building a couple of volumes for climbing. I've made holds in the past, but before I got into climbing, I made like some furniture and stuff. I would always make like my desk, for school and stuff like that. Um, but nothing, other than just spending time with my wife, basically brings me as much fulfillment as climbing does.
Okay, well, make sure to hear that part. Okay,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
that's awesome. So, building holds down, that's a technique. That's a skill within itself. A buddy of mine used to do that. So, what's kind of your process when you go to start building holds? Is it stuff that maybe is more for everybody or the adaptive community? What's kind of your process when you go to make a hold?
Um, it's for me really. The holds I've built have really gone towards like friends or home walls. I've never personally had a home wall, but my dad has had a few home walls that some holds I've made have been put to good use on. And no, I don't know. I think I take my piece of wood and I just start shaping and see where it takes me. Not usually going into it with too much of an idea, beyond like I want a small hold or I want a big jug or something. And then it's just gets down to getting messy with it and spending hours with a grinder and a bandsaw and like a face mask and all that. Um, just just letting the dust fly.
That's awesome. And you create like a unique hold that you still keep or you use in your gym?
Yeah, I have a few. Let's see. Made some interesting shapes, but they're all a little bit amorphous, so maybe hard to explain.
That's
Um,
fair.
but yeah, I don't know. I've made a wide range. It really depends on the shape of the piece I'm starting with. Yeah.
I gotcha. So I was listening to the podcast, and it was you were talking about your first World Cup, which I believe was in Las
Los
Vegas, right?
Angeles.
Los Angeles. Okay, and was that
Yeah.
in 2017?
2021. That was my first World
2021.
Cup. Yeah,
Okay,
September or October, I think.
I gotcha. Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So, how was that experience, especially your first time going?
It was intimidating. It was really interesting. It was, yeah. I mean, like I said earlier, I never really knew that I was like an adaptive athlete or hadn't really heard that word until I went to the Paraclimbing World Cup and met like the adaptive climbing community there, and kind of just like blew my mind that there's all these other disabled athletes who are like super strong and motivated for climbing, and basically just made a ton of friends that I'm still good friends with to this day, and yeah, it basically changed my life.
Oh, how did it change your life?
Well, I went from this guy who'd been climbing for a couple of years, um, who I had friends here and a climbing community here, and I still do, but like I guess I didn't know what I was missing until I found it, which was like this incredible community of other disabled athletes. Um, and once you start hearing their stories and being able to relate to someone in a way that I hadn't essentially before, I'd never known anyone else really in the disabled community, and all of a sudden I know like 100 people with like dope stories. So I don't know, it opened up a lot of opportunities and a lot of relationships and friendships, and I mean, eventually led to like meeting my wife, who's also an adaptive athlete. Um, I'm where I am today now, having competed in six more World Cups and gone to
Right, that's
two
awesome.
adaptive climbing festivals, and yeah, it's the community. I'm very much a part of the community now, which is really a cool thing.
I gotcha. So, was there someone in the adaptive community that kind of like had a significant impact on like your journey, and have they, has their experience changed kind of your view on life, especially meeting all those people at the World Cup?
Yeah, I mean, I can think of a number of people who have kind of impacted me as I've met them. Maureen Beck definitely comes to mind as someone who first kind of convinced me to get into it. She was one of the people to convince me to go to LA in 2021. Mo Beck is like, uh, I mean, she must be one of the most famous names in adaptive climbing. 10-time national champion, multiple time, like she's been in the game for a long time. Just recently retired after 10 years, and
Oh,
I
okay.
think she's probably responsible for getting half of the North American, at least adaptive climbing community, into the sport. So she's a huge influence on the community in general. Definitely on myself.
What was it like meeting her for the first time in person?
It was cool. We basically got along pretty quickly, I think. And I wasn't too starstruck. I think I was, I tried to play it cool maybe. But no, I mean, she's just, just a cool, normal person. So, and we have a lot to relate on. So it was nice. It was like
Yeah,
meeting a new friend.
I gotcha. That's awesome. And you guys stay in contact, I'm sure, and everybody else that you've met.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, yeah, Mo actually went on to officiate my wedding just last October, so we're pretty
Now
close.
that's cool. Talk about that's awesome. Like full circle right there, huh?
Yeah, for sure. No, it
I
was a special
gotcha.
moment.
So you said you went to six competitions. What's kind of your favorite memory from like what's your best and most memorable memory from that? And then kind of like it could be your best performance or like the fun after parties I've heard you guys throw with other adaptive athletes. So what's like your favorite memory or best memory?
Yeah, the after parties are really where the fun happens. You nailed it on the head there. I mean, in competition, it's still it's there's a bit of stress, because you're competing and all that, but then the whole thing's over, whether you made the podium or not, everyone goes in the after party. And the classic thing for us to do is go to a bar with a mechanical bull. And so one of my favorite memories is actually my second competition. in Salt Lake City in 2022. Um, and just showing up at this bar in Salt Lake, and they have a mechanical bull, and just seeing the faces on the staff, and we basically walked in there with 50 plus disabled athletes, and we're hoisting people from wheelchairs up onto the bull, and people are swinging prosthetic legs as they're on the bull, and I mean everyone's just having a good time. And so that whole night, one of my first after party experiences. I mean, it was my second experience after the one in LA. And it was just raucous and rowdy, and a good time. And I mean, that's just
Yeah.
kind of defines how the community is. We're a little bit raucous and rowdy, and we have a good time. And yeah, it's sweet.
What was the wild thing you saw at the bar that night?
Oh my gosh, it was all kind of wild. Um,
Can you remember?
Honestly,
'Cause I think that's the first
well,
question we should
yeah, I was
ask.
gonna say, I don't know if I can remember all the details, but no, I think it's just like probably my buddy Jeremy taking his leg off essentially, and it's adorned in Canadian flags, and he's swinging it around while he's riding the bull, and me and my other Canadian buddy are singing the national anthem, and
Nice.
yeah,
That's awesome.
good times.
So I've heard you mention that some of the amputee people will actually like create like some very unique feet for their foot for climbing. So what's like the coolest adaptation you've seen someone like make for their foot?
Ooh, well, the classic. There's a guy called Jim Ewing, who is relatively well known leg amputee within the world, and he has his Ewing foot design, which is basically a really good edging shoe, from my understanding. Not shoe, it's a foot, prosthetic foot. And I believe the first prototype was made of hockey pucks, kind of like sandwiched in between these metal plates, and then rubberized. But I've seen 3D printed feet, which look pretty cool. Essentially 3D printed into like the shape of an aggressive shoe, and then you put the shoe on it, so you can actually fit it really well to whatever shoe you want. Just you just print the foot that fits the shoe you want,
Yeah.
um, which is
They
pretty
could
cool.
take the weight of someone like using it.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
That's awesome.
for sure. Yeah, people. Gosh, they get really creative. Those light amputees. I'm impressed with the prosthetics they come up with, and yeah, especially. I mean, there's so many different scenarios. Like, there's really no perfect foot. Like a prosthetic that's good for slab might not be good for overhand, vice versa. Something that can be like a smeary foot with maybe a little more give to it is not going to be so good at edging, where you want just like a stiff piece of rubber. Um, so they get creative, depending on the situation, and what they're climbing. It's like a whole nother level to the tactics of it.
Yeah. Gonna see somebody with a bag full of feet one day.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, they do. They show up to the track with like a couple of feet sometimes. It's fun swapping
That's
them out.
awesome. Well, speaking of feet, it's I heard that you have one foot that's a different size than the other, correct?
That is correct. Yeah, my left foot is probably, depending on the shoes, 2.5 size difference from my right foot. So yeah, it can be an
Yeah.
issue.
So I hear you guys have what's called soulmates at some of these competitions, and you got like a swap box. So have you ever met a soulmate, or do you have a particular soulmate where you guys just always trade out shoes?
I have a couple approximate soulmates. The feet size and shape are not exactly the same. So I might give them a shoe and it fits them okay, but then when they give me their other shoe, it's like a bit small, like pretty performance fit. So I can wear it, but it's like it hurts sometimes.
First, yeah,
Yeah.
been there.
Um, and yeah, I think too they're both they're both for my right foot, so I actually don't have a left soulmate yet. Um, but yeah, it's a funny thing too, because the soulmate thing is usually for leg amputees who, one person's missing the left leg, the other's missing their right leg. And of course, you buy a pair of shoes at a time. So you'll end up with one shoe that you're never wearing because you only need the one for the leg that you have. So you find a soulmate who has the same size opposite shoe from you. But for me, it's both my feet are just different sizes, so I end up in like a threesome soulmate sort of situation where I need like
Oh,
one
okay.
for either foot. Um, so yeah, it's a funny thing. There is you talked about the swap box that shows up at competitions, or it'll be a table or whatever where you can just put your spare unused shoe on this table and let people kind of if they want to be anonymous about it, just grab a shoe without, I might have a soulmate out there who I haven't met and they've just taken the shoe that fits, and not known it was from me. Um, but yeah, it'd be nice to find my true soulmates or just get a shoe sponsorship. And, they can just send me individuals.
There you go. You could type an email to all like Lost Sport team and be like, "Hey, we need soulmates for the adaptive climbing community. Please help."
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
get your own shoe design with like the Canadian flag on it, and that would even be better because then they know. You can put your
That'd be nice.
initials. That'd be perfect.
There you go. I'll brand it. That'll be sick, actually.
There you go. So, you went to college, and what did you study again? Was it computer science, correct?
Yeah, yeah, Bachelor of Computer Science.
Okay, so you went from computer science, but now you're a route setter. So how does that story transpire?
Well, I'm a volunteer route setter. I don't make any money from that. So
Okay,
I
okay.
do, I'm in between jobs at the moment, but I'm essentially a software developer slash web designer. I've had a number of jobs, not all within the field, but,
That's all
but
right.
yeah, no, I unfortunately I'm not a full-time paid route setter. I wish, but yeah.
Yeah, I got you. So volunteer, that's awesome. Now, do you help like set some competitions, and have you gotten your like level one or anything like that?
Yeah, so in Canada we don't have the level systems. I have set for a few competitions, the majority of which actually are competitions that I facilitated, that I ran and conceived. Specifically, last year I came up. It's been done before, but I did independently have the idea to come up with this competition that I called "Climb Like a Paraclimber," where essentially it's a competition for everybody, where able-bodied athletes are learning what it's like to climb like a paraclimber. So there will be routes set where you're supposed to climb it with one hand or one foot, blindfolded, or campus. Those are kind of the four uh, disabilities, so to speak, that are easy uh, to kind of replicate. Um, and so I've set for those. I've also set for two uh, local paraclimbing competitions in Ontario last year, which were actually two out of the three first uh, paraclimbing competitions that were ever done in Canada. So it's exciting stuff. They all happened last year around the same time in the fall. Um, but yeah, I don't have any sort of certification or yeah, like I said, we don't have the level system here, so I wouldn't know how to like class myself. But yeah, it's fun. I enjoy it.
That's all right. Hey, that's the main thing. Enjoy it. So you came up with the climb like a paraclimber comp.
I did.
Okay.
Yeah, I was looking for a way to fundraise and spread awareness and just let people like give people the opportunity to understand like what it's actually like to climb one-handed or with one leg. It doesn't give people an exact. It's not a true replacement for really understanding what it's like to be an amputee or paralyzed or something, but it at least can give an appreciation of the type of movement that we uh, use as paraclimbers that kind of come about as a necessity of what's our disability. Um,
I gotcha. How was the turnout for that? And do you continue to do it every year? Or?
yeah, so last year was the first one, and I did it in May, and it was pretty good. I mean, it was 50 people at like this small bouldering gym that I set at. But since then, I've done it like 5 more times in November last year in Ontario, and the idea is kind of like picked up steam, and a few people in the States have run similar competitions. I was just at one actually following the last World Cup in Salt Lake City. A friend of mine had a movie premiere, and she did a climb like a paraclimber. Kind of, it wasn't a competition, but just like an event sort of thing before the screening. Um, so it's cool. It's cool to see the idea kind of growing beyond me.
That's kind of, and you feel like you kind of get that community and people get more of like an understanding of like how you guys climb and some of the unique adaptations you guys have to use to climb for, to figure out your movement if you're missing a leg or things like that.
Yeah.
So I know you mentioned that funding's kind of um, a big thing, Canada, because the climbing team right now for Canada, you guys don't really have a national paraclimbing team. So do you guys have any kind of like solutions you can think of to help with that funding process, or is it getting better?
Um, I don't know if I have any solutions necessarily. The real thing is there's a few things, but in general, just the more engagement that paraclimbing has, the more money the IFSC and the national organizations start to make, and then the more money can kind of go around and trickle down to the athletes. A big thing is getting included in the Paralympics would be huge for us, especially in Canada, but I mean worldwide, because it would kind of force, not force, but I mean the government, if we were included in the Paralympics, would then have to recognize us as a sport essentially and start putting us on the same sort of funding systems that other sports, more established sports like track and field, for example, get. Here in Canada, we have like this. I'm blanking on what it's called, but essentially, there's a system for athlete funding, but you have to be recognized as an official sport, which climbing at the moment is like a bit, I don't know, it's a bit weird in Canada. It hasn't quite been adopted under the same umbrella as more traditional sports, especially Olympic sports. But anyway, with that would come funding and hopefully more interest overall. Um, yeah, there's a lot of things that can be done, but I mean, in general, there's not a lot of money in climbing anyway. And so adaptive climbing definitely there's no money in that. And if there's no money in regular climbing, there's definitely no money in adaptive climbing. Some people,
Yeah, I agree. Sports just so new, That's unfortunate because it just made its debut in the Olympics. But you did mention, I believe, that there's talks of getting paraclimbing into the Paralympics, correct?
yeah, it's up for decision right now whether it will be included as an exhibition sport in the LA 2028 Olympics. And my understanding is that they have to tell us by this Olympics, by Paris 2024, whether or not we're included. So hopefully we find out soon.
I gotcha. And so I noticed you're the president of Adaptive Climbers of British Columbia, which is a group. You and I think your wife are well, kind of both president and vice president, created this group. So how's that going, and how is that contributing to the adaptive community for Canada?
It's doing well. We're still very much in the building stages. Right now, we're planning our sort of what's the word? Kind of our grand opening event, if you will. In the meantime, we've been running monthly meetups in Vancouver. Just trying to put feelers out there and see who else might be in the adaptive climbing community in BC that we're not aware of. Um, and so it's been doing well. And we're hoping with this event that we're planning for August that we can sort of generate a lot of interest all at once and kind of hit the ground running from there. But yeah, I mean, the goal with that really is to build a community here because there isn't a super big one. I mean, there's five of us essentially who are really adaptive climbers, and then there's a few other people I know have been to a couple meetups once or twice, and yeah, I don't know. I see similar programs happening in the States or in Ontario, and I just thought to myself like, hey, let's try it out here. Let's see who might be interested.
I got you. Do you guys have like a social media presence or anything, or is that slowly coming about?
We do, yeah. I really need to get more on it because I created the Instagram page and have been a little neglectful of it, as other things are happening in life. But we do, yeah. It's Adaptive Climbers of BC on Instagram, and from there you can find our website and stuff. Yeah, I don't know. I'm hopeful for the future of it.
I got you. Do you well, look into the future? Do you have like a legacy that you hope to leave in the adaptive community, and how do you see yourself contributing to like positive changes on like a broader scale?
Ooh, good question. Yeah, I mean, I hope in general to kind of be a figure, sort of following Wobbeck's footsteps in the sense of being someone who has helped grow the community a lot and just reaching out to people and getting them into the sport. Um, on a wider scale, I don't know. I can't, I don't know what my greater purpose is or whatever, but, I just hope that I can have a positive influence on this sort of niche of this already niche sport that I love. So, yeah, I don't know. It's cool. It is, like you said, the sport is so new, which on one hand is a little unfortunate because there's maybe less money in it and less people are aware of it really. But it is cool at the same time to kind of be in on the ground floor a little bit, especially in Canada where it's so small. And it does open the opportunity for being part of the growth of it. So, yeah.
I got you. So no big plans yet, huh? Just kind of figuring out as we go.
Yeah, if I made too big of plans, I end up thinking about it too much instead of doing much about it. So I need to just, have little milestones and see where it takes me.
That's all right. Well, it sounds like you guys got a few people. You got a board of directors. It sounds like from what I saw on your website. So that's awesome.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, we have. I mean, the four people on the board, two of which are my wife and myself, are like four of the five people in BC who are really like in this adaptive climbing community. So I mean, we essentially we want more friends.
Oh, we could all use those. Climbing's a good community. So, how would you encourage someone to maybe start trying to get into adaptive climbing if they're maybe a little hesitant? And have you taken people like outside and in the gym that are kind of introducing them to it?
Yeah, yeah, I would recommend. It depends where you are, a little bit, but I would definitely recommend seeing what's available locally in terms of like an adaptive climbing program at your gym. Because I mean, that's definitely the best place to start is just to go to the gym with other adaptive climbers, who can show you the ropes, so to speak, and you'll feel very comfortable in that social environment. There's no judgment. Everyone has their stories, and everyone started somewhere. So if you're someone who has a disability and maybe you never climbed before, but you thought it looked cool or something, I can tell you that it is very cool. And if you're not sure if you can climb or not, based on whatever disability you have, I can tell you most definitely that you can climb. And there's people out there who can help facilitate that. So find that community if there is one locally. Um, if there isn't one, I mean, still you can go to the gym and try to cultivate that and meet people, meet able-bodied people who are you know who will also help you out. Might not be exactly the same um, comfort level necessarily as being in a community of other disabled athletes, but I definitely would not let your disability stop you from trying it out because everybody can climb. I promise.
Yeah, and the man himself says that. I agree with you. Climbing is good. Why do you think climbing's probably the best adaptive sports out there?
Because you can really, there's so many systems that you can put in place with like pulley systems to help take off weight for someone who maybe can't carry their own body weight yet, or I mean, there's really such a range where the entry level of climbing can be very, very easy. And then there's a very easy way to progress, through difficulty levels. And before you know it, you've gotten stronger, more capable within your own body, more bodily aware. It's good for joint health, and muscle health, and health, and all the rest of it. I really think it is an excellent adaptive sport. It has everything. It has the community. It has the progressive difficulty. It has the low barrier to entry. Um, yeah.
I got you. Well, speaking of community, the climbing community is so welcoming. Can you kind of speak to the adaptive community, especially on your end that you've experienced it before because you're so embedded in it?
Yeah, I mean, it's similarly very welcoming, if not even more so. We're super happy to have new people always. We're constantly trying to grow the sport from all different angles. And so, if somebody shows even the slightest glimmer of interest, um, and they're an adaptive athlete or a person, um, and one of us who's already in the community like picks up on that, we'll be on you. We'll be like, hey, you doing climbing? You doing climbing? Like, let's do it. Yeah, the stoke is very high for new people, and yeah, it's super welcoming. I mean, everyone's very nice.
I got you. For those listening, both adaptive or non-adaptive, are there like some common misconceptions you've noticed about like one adaptive sports in general, and then maybe add some like specific misconceptions people have about climbing?
Mhm. Um, yeah, I'm trying to think like because I am kind of so within the community, I don't necessarily know how people look at it from the outside. But I think there can be some misconceptions about adaptive sport or adaptive climbing, like not being as serious as the able-bodied counterpart, which like I definitely want to clear up because like we are serious athletes. Like the people going to World Cups and competing are like training hard and like if some of these people weren't disabled, you would see them on the regular able-bodied World Cup circuit. Like there is some super strong athletes in the field, and everyone is there to do their best. Um, and so it's not like a charity thing where it's like, oh, let's put on like a competition, but it's for disabled people. That'll be nice. It's like, no, these are serious people who are here to win, which is really cool because it's like it's legit sport. It's not just we do have a good time. We probably have a better time than our counterparts maybe sometimes, but we're also there like legit to throw it down. So yeah. In terms of misconceptions about climbing, I don't know. I think that's just like the normal funny stuff where people are like, they see you going out and they're like, "Oh, are you Alex Honnold? Or, are you,
Yeah.
you're not doing that free solo stuff, are you? Or whatever. I don't know. people have like a disconnect about climbing where maybe they think it's super dangerous or something, and they don't understand that like we're very meticulous about safety. Uh, yeah, I don't know. I think it's that sort of just people learned about climbing with free solo, but like don't really know anything about
Yeah.
it. So, you get those people who make weird comments. Yeah,
Yeah. The best is going bouldering and you got your crash pad on your back and people are like, "Oh, is that a hiking bag?" and stuff like that. I've
yeah,
gotten that before. What's
yeah.
the weirdest question you've been asked going bouldering?
Oh, probably just like if it's a bed, like they think I think there was one person who I think legit thought I was like a homeless person, like carrying my bed around. Like maybe I looked like him, maybe I hadn't shaved in a while and I just finished climbing, so I'm a little like, but yeah, it was, I just laughed it off. So uh, it is, I try to explain to people, when I see they're confused, I'm like, oh yeah, like it's rock climbing, like, you do this, you have a pad with you. Just, some people are aware of rock climbing, but they don't know that bouldering is a thing, like they know about the ropes, but they've never heard of like the crash pad and bouldering. So I like to educate in those situations.
Yeah. Well, and for those listening that don't know, crash pads is basically like this big foam pad you carry on your back with backpack straps that you can unfold in half basically for landing on so you don't land on a rock, which is not
Yeah,
fun.
it does make a good bed, to be fair, in a pinch.
Oh, that's true. I got you. Have
So
you do you have a built out car yet for like camping and going climbing?
I did. Well, I actually used to. I had like an Astro van that was built out with the bed and stuff, but it was too much of a liability. Honestly, that thing was old. But I do have like a nice van that I can. It's more of like an SUV, really, but I can stretch out in the back, and I have a nice foamy and stuff. So I'm pretty comfy when I'm car camping.
I got you. Do you have a favorite place to go in Canada?
Ooh, it's a good question. Honestly, some of my favorite places are just like local. The Okanagan Valley is beautiful. It has everything. It has all the rock climbing you could ever want. Um, it is nice to go to Stromish every once in a while. Um, but whenever I'm there, I'm always feel like I'm not there long enough. Like you need time to acclimate to the rock type and conditions. And every time I feel like just as I've done that, the trip's over and I'm heading home. Um,
That's how it
but
always goes.
yeah, honestly, that's with everywhere, isn't it? But no, I don't know. Like it's hard to beat home. Like BC is a beautiful place. So yeah,
I gotcha. And then where I've seen some of your bouldering videos and you're by the water, so what's that like?
yeah. That's very close to where I live. That's like 40 minutes away. Just from the next town over. That's where that V2, my first outdoor climb that I was talking about. That's where that is. It's this little crag called Pebble Beach with maybe 40 problems, super sharp. Like people are not big fans of Pebble Beach, honestly, just because the rock is so sharp. And they're right, but I just love the setting, like just being beside the Okanagan Lake with the rock and the lake and the mountains in the background. The sky is always beautiful. It's such a nice setting to do a little bit of rock climbing.
I gotcha. Do you have you climbed internationally anywhere? And if so, where was your favorite place?
Yeah, and it's gotta be Switzerland. Or honestly, let's see. So last year I went to Europe for the whole IFSC circuit. So I was at the World Cup in Innsbruck and in Switzerland. Um, was there two in Switzerland? The World Championships were in Switzerland as well. Um, and in between all that traveling and competing, got to climb outside a little bit. And where was that crag? I think it was in Switzerland. But honestly, it's probably not like the nicest track, in Europe or whatever. There's a lot of nice places there, but it was just a really nice day out with friends. And yeah, I don't know, it's beautiful there. I mean, you can't really go anywhere in that country without being awed by the view. So
I gotcha. Would you say the climbing was good and just being with your friends, or was it kind of everything? Like, why was it your favorite?
it was just the whole scenario. Like, I think we were in between competitions, so like had done one World Cup and we're anticipating the next one, and we're just like enjoying Europe. We'd been there for a week or two and knew we were there for another week or two, and we're just out with good friends. And yeah, the climbing was good. It was wasn't anything particularly special, but fun climbing, fun beautiful setting, and yeah, it kind of just sticks out to me. Um,
I gotcha. Do you have any bucket list destinations you're trying to get off your list for climbing?
Fontainebleau has got to be the top of the list. I think as a location stylistically would fit me very well. And it's also just the mecca kind of for rock climbing. I mean, Fontainebleau is the classic, so I would love to go there one day.
I gotcha. And that's the boulder field in France, correct?
So yeah,
I gotcha. So what is it about it for you that makes you want to go there? Even though I know it's the Mecca, but like, what's special about it to you to go?
it's Fontainebleau is kind of famous for like its slopey problems, and it does have a full range of styles, but the predominant style, from my understanding, is like this sloper compression, or like mantles and essentially all the things that suit me well with my disability and the way that I like to climb. And so I think it'd be a really good spot for me to find like a hard project or a lot of fun climbs for me. I think are in Fontainebleau.
I gotcha. Okay. And so going in, kind of diving in deeper to that, what kind of adaptations have you made due to your disability to help your climbing? Because I mean, you climb really strong. You're climbing V6 and V7, which is advanced climbing, especially for bouldering.
Mm. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, in terms of adaptations, I mean, I don't have anything super specific like with my disability, which is like limb difference in of the hand. Um, I don't require a prosthetic or anything. The most I do is just to tape up my hand when my skin is bad, which is essentially not much different from what most people do when their skin is bad. They tape up their hands. Um, and so I can show my hand on the stream
Yeah.
with people context. But this is what my right hand looks like. I
And so
can't.
it looks like you just have a thumb and a finger, correct?
Yeah, so I can pinch, but I don't have a lot of strength in that
Okay.
pinch. So what I do is I use this surface of my hand a lot in climbing
Okay.
on edges and stuff. And then I also use this knuckle here more for like pressing. I'm really strong in a pressing position off of that knuckle. So often I'm almost climbing, I almost equate it to having 3 feet instead of 2 feet, two hands. It's like 3 feet and a hand. So I'm often like sitting kind of on this hand below me as if it's a foot, and then like bumping my left hand up. Um, but really depends, just like on something compression-y, I'll be more. What we don't have to do there. I'll be more out like this, like hooking around in a ret or something.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you use kind of like a hook grip for mantle there if you can get up on a slope curve, but then depending on what you got, if you're going to mantle up, you use kind of the side of your hand, depending on where it's on the thumb or the kind of what would be a finger side or pinky side finger.
Yeah, I do a lot of like micro beta, like shuffling around what part of the hand is on the hold, depending on the position of my body relative to that. Um, so yeah, I know it's an interesting. Um, I'm still learning, honestly, like the best positions in certain scenarios and stuff. So it's cool. It's fun. I always say that like I have more fun than most people do climbing because I have like even more of a problem to solve.
Yeah.
Which I mean that's the fun part of climbing, right? Is solving problems. So I don't necessarily have an issue with having more problems to solve.
I got it. So would you say that setting climbing routes has maybe enhanced your climbing experience, or has kind of give you like unique insights into climbing movements?
I'd say so. Yeah, it's not necessarily something that is super like conscious, um, or that I'll be able to speak on like super detailed necessarily, but I have had people tell me that I climb like a route setter, which is
It's a
interesting.
great compliment, by the way.
Yeah, I definitely take it as one. I think it does kind of help build an intuitive understanding of movement, um, and especially climbing inside, like for competitions. I think it does help me like look at a route and understand what was intended by the setters, which can kind of help take a lot of the guessing out of it. Because of course, instead of having to guess, I can tell by looking. But you know, it's helpful in that sense, but it's not super helpful necessarily because the way I climb something is often not the way it was intended. Because often it's intended not for me; it's intended for an able-bodied clientele. So I do have to take my own intuition on the intention of the route with a grain of salt and also look at it from the perspective like, okay, how would I actually climb it and not how do they want me to climb it? Um, but it's good. It's a good part of the puzzle to have that understanding and that knowledge that comes from route setting.
Yeah, gotcha. So would you say you're a constant beta breaker when it comes to climbing routes?
I do fancy myself as a beta breaker. It gives me great satisfaction to do something in a different way from the majority. So
Yeah, and have the route setter pout a little bit because you broke the beta of the route. And you're like, ah, dang it.
yeah, exactly. But I love when people break the beta of my routes. So I'm like, nice one. You know, I respect. So yeah,
I gotcha. Well, have you ever thought about maybe in the future trying to see if you can set for like an international adaptive climbing competition or anything like that?
I've thought about it for sure. I think it would be a cool mm, retirement shift eventually. You know, to retire from competition and enter the setting. I'm not totally sure on the path for that for me. Um, I don't have a ton of opportunities necessarily to set um competitions. I mean, it's not entirely true. Like, I'm one of the people, like I mentioned earlier, to have set for like some of Canada's first paraclimbing competitions. Um, but like I mentioned earlier too, like we don't have a level system in Canada. It's hard to kind of get the experience setting for like to actually end up on the IFSC route setting team takes a lot of experience setting competitions. Um, but for me to get experience setting competitions is hard unless they're paraclimbing competitions to that at least I have some expertise in. But the number of paraclimb competitions in Canada is very small. So for me to get enough experience to eventually end up at the level where I can be on the IFSC setting team is unclear how that path forward will look for me. But it's certainly something I've thought about, and I am slowly building in that direction. Should the opportunity present itself, I'll be ready at least. So yeah,
I gotcha. Well, that's awesome, man. So it looks like you got some goals and a little bit of ambition for that, which is good. And hey, you never
yeah,
know what's going to happen. So that's awesome.
exactly.
Kind of going back to being a beta breaker and stuff like that, and people, you said you're proud of them to kind of break your routes or to climb them or break the beta that you set. So have you ever given like a unique tip to like a non-adaptive climber that helped them actually send the route or climb it and complete it?
So I don't have like a specific a story of this happening where like someone was climbing a specific route and I kind of helped them out from an adaptive perspective. Um, but through the climb to paraclimber competitions that I was mentioning earlier, I have begun to espouse more the benefits of like training in those styles to benefit someone's climbing. So like to train climbing one armed can help someone a lot in like understanding balance positions um, and helping with commitment. Because when you're climbing with one arm and 2 feet, uh, every movement you only are ending up with 2 points of contact. You're always like in a balanced position and then having to explode into another balanced position. Uh, there's not a lot of like static movement because obviously that comes from like moving one hand and moving the other hand. And so then if you practice that a lot, it helps get you comfortable in those sort of unbalanced transitions between positions. Um, and I think it can be really helpful for someone's climbing in general. Um, there even as I've started to experiment with one-on climbing more, I've found some movements in some climbs where it's actually better to just do like a one-arm move, like to bump your arm without the other hand on, because maybe it's like a weird, awkward thing to actually to put your other hand on the hold is pushing you out of position and actually making it harder. So anyway, like I said, I don't have a specific story, but I do think that that kind of there's something to be learned from the way that paraclimbers climb and from the movement patterns that they get really good at out of necessity. If you can get good at those movement patterns despite not necessarily needing to, I think it can really level up somebody's climbing. So,
I got you. And so I know, because you're an athlete, what's your training regimen like?
yeah, it's about 4 days a week, um, 3.5 to 4 hours in the gym. Now that the World Cup is over and I'm not actually doing any of the other World Cups for the season, I am transitioning into outdoor climbing. So I think it's gonna be like 3 days outside, one day in the gym. Um, but it'll be a little bit up and down. But in general, it's 4 days a week with like, one day on, one day off, 2 days on, one day off type of thing. Um, but yeah, I don't know, climbing and working out and hangboarding, it's pretty standard. But having an actual coach to kind of drive what you're doing has been really helpful for me. Because otherwise I just won't do it. I'll just climb for fun and not really progress. But I've only really been seriously training for like 4 months leading up to the World Cup, and I definitely have felt the benefits. So I'm stoked to keep on that train.
I got you. Do you and your wife train together and climb together a lot?
Yes and no. Yeah, it's maybe a half and half or so. Um, it is a lot of fun to go into the gym with her and kind of focus on her training and be her belayer, and then have other days where I'm in the gym by myself, trying to doing my own thing. Um, we do kind of train in very different ways because she doesn't boulder. Essentially, because of her disability, she has a hard time taking ground falls, so she just top ropes. So her training sessions, I go in and belay her, and then I go to the boulder gym, on a different day. Um, but yeah, it's a lot of fun. She's obviously I married her, so I like hanging out with her. And
I mean, I would
happy
say
to
so.
be, yeah, happy to be the belay buddy and climb in between as well.
I got you. So That has to be really awesome and amazing to like, you and your wife have this like are in this community together, and so you can share that community, and then you share climbing. So like, what's that like? How awesome is that?
It's awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's awesome. It's really cool. We met last year, not 2 years ago, but it was in the fall, so it feels like last year. At the Adaptive Climbers Festival, which takes place in the Red River Gorge in Kentucky, and she is American. And shortly after we met, a few months, essentially, I think it was 4 months, we decided to get married. Got married in May, and then, well, we when I say we got married, we signed the papers in May, and then we went back to the Adaptive Climbers Festival that October, and that's where we had our wedding. And like I said, Mobac officiated, and it was just like a magical, wonderful experience with the adaptive climbing community in like a beautiful setting. So fun. Everyone told us it's like the best wedding they've ever been to, which was really cool because I didn't have to put hardly any work into it. It was all it was all kind of facilitated by the venue and the festival, runners. So it was sweet, and I mean, it just feels very special to have met her in this community and to have sealed the deal in the community with her. And now, we're starting this society in BC to try and build the community. It's very cool. So yeah, when I say that like adaptive climbing changed my life, like it has touched every aspect of my life and kind of just swept me away. It's very cool.
That's awesome, man. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. So the Red River Gorge, that's where they have the Adaptive Climbing Fest, huh? Every year.
Yeah, every year for the last, and it's been there the last 3 years now, if I'm remembering correctly. And then yeah, it'll be there again this year. They got a good thing going on there. I think they're expecting 150 adaptive climbers this year.
Okay. I have to remember that because I'm not too far, like 6 hours away, so it's
Right.
kind of nice. But I've never had a good experience at the Red, unfortunately. It's always
What?
rained or it's been really hot. So
Uh,
it's not.
well, and when you go, because it's usually in October, it's like peach, like October, beautiful. The falls are the leaves are multicolored. It's like the weather is gorgeous. It did rain on our wedding day, to be fair, but a wet knot is stronger than a dry knot, so it was meant to be.
That's true. That's awesome. Did you guys get some Miguel's pizza afterwards?
I think yeah, I think we had some a couple of days before.
I gotcha. Yeah,
Right.
for those that are listening, I guess that Miguel's is like this really awesome, basically a hole in the wall pizza place that got started by some climbers that were kind of going there. So it's awesome. I love that area. And then now there's so much camping. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's really cool. Yeah, we stay at the festival happens at Lago Linda's, and we've built a really good relationship with them. They like the first year that the fest happened there, they kitted out the campground with like handrails and ramps and everything. So that's really cool.
And then I think it's what one of the is it Riffer? I think one of the owner's kids had like a genetic disease because they were talking about that a couple years ago. Did you hear about that?
No, who's one of the owners of Lago Linda?
Not Lagalinda's, sorry, Miguel's.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I think she had like liver disease. Yeah, they had like T-shirts. I can't remember the name of it, but because I was fortunate enough to meet them because I was there for the Rocktoberfest they do every year, so that was fun.
Cool. Yeah, yeah. No, I don't know anything about that, but that's I hope they're doing okay.
Yeah. So, can you tell us about like a memorable triumph or breakthrough in your climbing journey that you haven't like shared before, and like what you learned from that?
And it's hard because if it was memorable or triumphant, then I definitely shared it.
That's fair.
Um, but I don't know. I was trying to think about this, and I think honestly, I'm still waiting for that moment, or like still working towards like accomplishing something or climbing something that's like truly, that I feel like, wow, I did it. I haven't thrown myself really at a project yet, and like, come out on the other side feeling like, wow, I put like a lot of time and energy into that, um, and I succeeded. But I'm aiming for that this year as I transition out of competing and into the outdoor bouldering. There's a couple projects I have my eye on, so and if I triumph, I'll definitely share it. So look out for that. But
All right, sounds good. What projects are you working on?
there's a couple. There's like, so my max grade right now is V7, and I'm sure that my true max grade is beyond that. But the thing is that it really depends on the style for me. Like there's V4s, V3s that I will never be able to do, but I'm sure there's like a V10 that I can do. And so there is like a 10 that I'm eyeing up and an 8 that I'm eyeing up. And they're both kind of like slopey compression climbs, which I think does suit me relatively well. So those are, I'm hoping to throw myself at this year.
All right, well, hopefully I'm sure you'll get it this year. You've been training, so you're ready for it. And now you got time to concentrate on it. That's awesome.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
So I was talking to Ben Mayforth, and we were talking about climbing. And since I'm a climber, you're a climber, and climbing's so special, he mentioned that for him, climbing it gives him like the freedom to express himself. Would you say that's kind of the same thing for you, or you kind of get that sensation from it?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, it's a really interesting experience to like walk up to a piece of rock and, work your way up it, through the power of your own body. It certainly can be an expression of yourself, especially I feel like in the adaptive climbing world, that because we all climb things so differently and in such unique ways, it's unlikely that I'm going to climb something, even like an ultra classic, well established line that everyone climbs. Like, I'm probably going to find some beta that nobody else uses to get myself through it. So I do believe it's a self expression in that way. Like, when I'm the only one doing it this way, and it's certainly an expression of who I am. So yeah, I would definitely say so.
So, what kind of advice would you give to someone that is like maybe going through something, and you're just like, hey, you need to be authentically who you are and accept everything that's going on, and maybe they're having trouble. What advice would you give them?
Man, I don't know if I'm qualified to give that advice, but
Hey, we've all
um,
had struggles, and we can help
yeah,
people, and that's what we're here for.
no, that's fair enough. Just don't give up type of thing. Like, it's always brighter on the other side. It might feel hard, or maybe you're not feeling comfortable in your body or something. But you know, there's people out there who care about you, and and yeah, it's life is good. Maybe if it sucks right now, but like overall, life is good. So, it's worth sticking it out and realizing that.
And if all else fails, come climbing, right?
Come climb, yeah, come climb.
Come climb.
Sad, come climb.
Yep. And you'll never be the same once you touch rock for the first time, whether it's plastic inside or outside.
That's right.
Well, Seamus, I appreciate your time. Don't want to keep you too long, and thanks for everything. Do you have anything else you want to add or anything like that? You want to give a shout out to your organization or anything?
Shout out, yeah, just adaptive climbers of BC.ca. uh, at Adaptive Climbers of BC on Instagram. If you're in BC and you have a disability, or you don't have a disability but you want to volunteer, um, whatever it is, I mean, just reach out with questions or just to say hi. We'd love to talk to you. We'd love to hear your story and tell you ours. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for everything. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I definitely appreciate it.